commentaires sur les centres de révélation?
Oui, bien sûr. Bonjour tout le monde. Première journée. Hier, c'était difficile pour les familles d'Inde et aussi pour les gens qui viennent de ce pays. Surtout pour moi, mes parents viennent d'Inde et maintenant nous savons que ça c'est un temps difficile pour tout le monde. N'importe quoi, la religion, l'ethnicité. Donc je voudrais dire que c'est un moment où on doit comprendre que ça c'est un temps difficile. On doit permettre le processus de continuer, le processus légal. Et aussi, on doit avoir l'empathie pour tout le monde qui vient de cette région du monde. Parce que nous savons que c'était un temps difficile hier et maintenant dans l'avenir. Et j'espère que tout le monde va être calme et unifié parce que ça c'est un temps très
in English, please. In English.
Yesterday, it was a very difficult time to hear the Prime Minister make the remarks that he did, especially for families who come from India. I'm thinking about my parents, for example. And I will say that I think that that sentiment is shared by South Asians and families who come from India regardless of religion. And I would just say that this is a time where we have to do two things. One, let the legal process continue as it must and be prudent in that respect.
Well, why did the government...
Can I just finish? And the second thing that we have to do is that we need to be empathetic because this is a time that families who come from India, regardless of religion, are going to find it difficult. And so I would just ask us to be empathetic and unified at the same time. And I appeal for calm.
Last year, there was a policy on Indo-Pacific policy. It was a way of, getting away from China. In light of all this, in light of what India is saying about Canada being too soft on quote-unquote Sikh terrorism, are we going too fast in trying to build some relationship with India?
You will recall that our Indo-Pacific strategy is prudent and is particularly targeted at areas where we have a contribution to make from a geostrategic standpoint, building people-to-people ties in the region, adding a third frigate from a defense perspective. And so I know that Minister Joly is continuing to pursue the Indo-Pacific strategy, and it remains in place.
What kind of relationship can Canada have with India? What kind of relationship that we're giving to them?
What are your thoughts on the Prime Minister's announcement yesterday?
Well, first and foremost, hearts go out to Hardeep's family, and our main focus is making sure that the family gets the justice that they deserve. And from yesterday's message, I hope it also sends a very message of confidence and a strong message to all the communities who are potentially impacted by foreign interference, that their government not only takes foreign interference extremely seriously, but this is something we've been on for a very, very long time. Some things you can talk about in public and some things that you can't, but this is something that we will always, as Canadians, protect our sovereignty.
There will be people in your community that will not be surprised by the news. Some of them will be scared. Mr. Nijjar was notified by CSIS that he was a target, yet Canada was not able to protect him. What do you have to say to the member of your community right now that are worried?
So first and foremost, to the community, and also as a member of our community, we grew up with a lot of these concerns. It's one of the reasons why when we form a government, we take these not only allegations very, very, very seriously, and making sure that our security agency do the appropriate work in this case. And right now, we're going to stay focused on making sure that the family gets gets the justice,
India is
and also making sure that the appropriate people get the appropriate information so that they can feel safe in our country.
India is also saying that there are officials, elected officials in Canada, that are promoting a separatist state of Khalistan. Are you one of them?
You know what, sadly, I have answered this question for a very long time. I've served my country in the military. I've been a police officer. And you can just imagine the scrutiny that you end up going through. And then I think you guys can do your own math on this when accusations are made, and then looking at what other nations may potentially do in trying to ruin somebody's reputation just for the sake of trying to create a certain narrative. And this is something that all Canadians need to be mindful of, and something that our community and some other communities have been very mindful of for a very long time. And for us, I've been very clear on not only who I am as a person, at the same time, also been very clear what my intentions and our government's intentions of what we do around the country. I have never supported, always making sure that my focus has always been serving Canadians. And hopefully this will send a very strong message to all others who are falsely accused constantly by this, and making sure that others don't also promote these.
But India's been making those accusations.
Well, India's been making those accusations for a very long time, and if you go back from the time that I got elected, even before when I used to serve in the military.
But what does it tell us about their accusation in general?
I think you could draw your own conclusions to this, and more importantly, not just this is not just about the Indian community or Sikh community. This is about all the communities, making sure that in our country we have, you know, Canadians from all over the world. I have been privileged every single time when I was in the international portfolio, when I went to go to somebody else's country, and I said, you know what, sir or ma'am, we have your citizens, a piece of your country in Canada. Because we have Canadians from all over. And because of this, we have our democracy and the right to peacefully express our views, regardless of this. And the key word being peaceful. And we will protect that.
Do you feel secure? Do you feel secure yourself in light of what happened? Do you feel secure?
One of the things is I would say that I have trust in our agencies, but I want to make sure that, rather than about me, I want to make sure that Canadians feel secure. And my strong message to them is that all our agencies are doing their utmost, not just in the short term. We've been focused on this for a very long time, to making sure that not only our security agency has the appropriate resources, but also make sure that they have the appropriate information. A lot of this work, and I used to be a police officer, something you can't share. We have to protect the integrity of the investigation right now. And also our intelligence work as well. We have to protect our sources and making sure that they work appropriately. But one thing that Canadians can be very proud of, and I am, is that we have the right people, the right agency, the right tools to be able to do this work. It is very sensitive work, but this is just another example how we as Canadians will come together to making sure that people are protected.
The future of our relations with India, the future of our relation with India, where does it go from now on?
You know, right now we're focused on hopeful that the Indian government cooperates with the investigation. When it comes to all the other relationships that we have, we look forward to continuing as normal. When it comes to first and foremost right now right now is we want to make sure that we protect the integrity of the investigation and that the Hardeep's family get the justice that they deserve. Thank you so much.
Vous avez quoi à dire à nos collègues indiens? Vous avez quoi à dire aux gens qui vivent au Canada? On savait que M. Nijjar il avait été averti par la SCRS qui était menacé de violence et on n'a pas été capable de le protéger. On dit quoi à nos citoyens canadiens qui sont dans cette situation-là?
Bien premièrement, qu'on prend ces allégations-là au sérieux, ce qu'on a pris extrêmement au sérieux. Je pense qu'on doit aller au fond des choses, on doit savoir comprendre qui le fait et qui derrière ça également, et aussi que le gouvernement du Canada sera toujours là pour protéger ses citoyens.
Mais manifestement, on a échoué dans ce cas-là.
Bien, il faut voir tout d'abord qu'est-ce qui s'est passé, puis bien comprendre le tout aussi. Là. Mais c'est quelque chose de très sérieux.
Sur le transport, là, juste quelque chose.
Oui.
C'est cette proposition, M. Poilievre, de dire on devrait forcer les villes à densifier autour des stations de transport en commun, sous peine de quoi on devrait retenir des sommes. Vous êtes au transport, vous êtes là-dedans. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de cette proposition?
Bien, je suis avant tout québécois, et la proposition de M. Poilievre reflète deux problèmes. La première, c'est qu'il ne comprend absolument pas comment ça se passe au Québec. Parce qu'il ne peut pas arriver et dire aux villes quoi faire. Il faut s'entendre au Québec, ce qu'on fait actuellement, on signe des ententes. Puis la deuxième, c'est qu'il vient dire aux villes, je vais vous enlever de l'argent si je ne suis pas content avec vous. Et ça, c'est de l'argent qui n'ira pas aux arénas, aux trottoirs, et ça n'a pas de sens.
Et de quel argent on parle?
$57,000. Mr. Champagne.
Yes, sir.
what tax measures could the government bring in that would ensure prices don't trickle down to shoppers at grocery stores?
Well, I would say everything is on the table, but yesterday was a step in the right direction. We summoned the executives to Ottawa. They came. I think it was a first in Canada, that's what I'm told. And secondly, what matters is that they committed, not only to the Government of Canada, but to Canadians who are watching, to bring meaningful action by Thanksgiving to stabilize price in Canada. So, you know, this is step one. There's a lot of work. You know, no one pretends it's easy. I was in touch with my counterparts in Europe this morning. We're going to look at what we can do because we know that this is the first step. The second step is to go after the large manufacturer. And that, maybe we need international cooperation, you know. So we're going to be talking to our UK friends. We're in touch with our French colleagues. And, you know, we're resolved in pushing the envelope together. The point is that Canadians asked me to fight for them. I'm bringing the fight.
But Thanksgiving is about what action will happen?
Pas s'inquiéter, M. Champagne, les compagnies canadiennes qui font affaire en Inde, comme Bombardier par exemple, est-ce qu'ils doivent s'inquiéter des tensions qu'on voit actuellement?
Ben, écoutez, la première responsabilité de tout gouvernement, c'est d'assurer la santé et sécurité des citoyens. Je pense que les allégations qui ont été soulevées hier sont très, très sérieuses. Comme ancien ministre des Affaires étrangères, c'est très, très préoccupant. Et je vous dirais, on part de là, la première priorité. Puis, c'est pas seulement la communauté sikh au Canada, mais moi, je pense à toutes les communautés. Vous savez, il y a plusieurs gens qui ont choisi de venir au Canada parce que le Canada, c'est la stabilité, c'est la prévisibilité, c'est un pays de la règle de droit. Et j'espère que ces communautés-là vont se sentir toujours en sécurité chez nous. Il y a un travail à faire avec les agences de sécurité, mais les allégations sont très, très sérieuses. Qu'un État étranger soit intervenu, selon les allégations, directement ou indirectement, dans l'implication d'un meurtre d'un citoyen canadien au Canada, c'est très, très sérieux.
Mais ça a des implications au niveau économique. Vous essayez de construire une chaîne de valeur, notamment au niveau des voitures électriques.
Oui.
La Chine, l'Inde, deux gros joueurs, on est en froid avec eux autres. Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire?
Oui, mais écoutez, la première chose que les gens s'attendent de nous, c'est d'abord de protéger la sécurité nationale du pays, puis évidemment, protéger les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Je pense qu'il faut partir de là, puis ensuite, on va vers les questions économiques. Mais la première priorité du gouvernement canadien, comme de tout gouvernement dans des démocraties libérales dans le monde, c'est d'abord de protéger ses citoyens et citoyennes. Et ça, c'est important. Oui.
M. Champagne, vous avez dit que c'est la première étape, vous avez parlé des joueurs internationaux, mais hier, vous avez dit que vous pourriez convoquer d'autres personnes dès cette semaine. Oui. Est-ce que vous en savez davantage? Qui allez-vous convoquer? Pouvez-vous nous donner plus de...
D'abord, c'est une très bonne question. On est en train de regarder. Vous savez, comme j'ai dit, c'est un travail qu'on est en train de faire. On a commencé hier. On avait déjà commencé avec l'arrivée sur l'épicerie, mais avec les producteurs, les grands. Là, ce qu'on va voir, c'est les grands manufacturiers, les Nestlé de ce monde, les Unilever, les PepsiCo, et même ceux qui sont canadiens. Je pense à Maple Leaf et d'autres. Là, il faut aller voir tout le monde. Alors, on est en train de les convoquer aussi à Ottawa. Les PDG, c'est en train de se faire. J'aimerais ça vous donner une réponse précise, mais on me dit que c'est au cours de la semaine, qui va être aussi sans précédent parce que ces gens-là ne sont pas habitués de se faire convoquer à Ottawa pour répondre de ce qu'on a vu dans certains cas, une inflation sur les prix. Alors, moi, ce que je dis, on va les rencontrer parce qu'ils doivent faire partie de la solution. Les Canadiens et Canadiennes qui nous regardent s'attendent à ce que chacun fasse sa part et on s'attend, nous aussi, à ce que ces gens-là fassent leur part.
What did the CEOs offer to do specifically? What solutions did they provide to you?
Let me reframe that instead. I asked them very specifically to come up with plans by Thanksgiving to take meaningful action to stabilize price in Canada. Now, the how they're going to do it, you want to allow competition for that because you know what? It's not just about the Government of Canada telling them we want you to be part of the solution, but there's millions of customers. So what I want is that now we'll let competition because they have to compete for customers. Now that the goal has been set, the timeline is clear. Now it's for them to compete amongst each other. These people compete. You should have seen in the meeting, they all look at each other and say, okay, if one is doing that, the other one may try to do more. And that's what we want because fundamentally what we want, like I said, is to stabilize price. And now they're going to be, I think, very creative in trying to see how they can achieve that. But we want to let competition go because obviously...
What do you mean by go after big manufacturers? What do you mean?
Well, we'll have a similar meeting that we had, and I'm looking also what's being done particularly in France. I'm going to talk to my UK counterparts. I think you see a movement not only in Canada but in Europe to see that also these large manufacturers have to account and have to be part of the solution. So we're going to be pushing them as well. And like I said, we're going to do that domestically, but I don't exclude to have cooperation with my colleagues, and we had discussion this morning.
L'inflation est à 4% ce matin, est repartie à la hausse. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
Ce qu'on a vu quand même, c'est ce qu'on appelle l'index du prix à la consommation pour les biens achetés en magasin descendre. Alors ça, c'est un pas aussi dans la bonne direction, c'est qu'on voit que l'inflation j'allais dire, des prix reliés à l'épicerie est en train de descendre. C'est une bonne chose, mais il faut faire plus, évidemment. Merci.
Well, I can't spoil what's going to come next. I was very, very encouraged, though, by the vote that took place at City Council. I was obviously particularly interested in the file, given some of the work that we're doing around the Housing Accelerator Fund. But I think it's safe to say that this is precisely the kind of change that we're trying to motivate with the Housing Accelerator Fund. I was very happy that the mayor was able to use the letter that we'd sent to help bring council along. If people want to tap in to the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is designed to change the way that cities build homes, then they got to change the way that they're going to build homes. Calgary has certainly ticked that box. I look forward to making sure I have a chance to discuss next steps with the mayor before I broadcast anything today.
Now, is changing... oh, so are you going to say more today?
Not today, but I expect we will be able to share more in the not too distant future.
So is changing density zoning, is that going to be like a key figure that the government is looking for in these plans?
Yeah, absolutely. Building more dense cities that are livable for their residents is going to be a huge part of the path forward. The exact solution on a city-by-city basis could vary given what's appropriate for one community based on factors ranging from geography, from access to municipal services, the capacity of water and sewer systems. I don't want to be dogmatic that there has to be a single rule for every single community, but certainly increasing densification and building homes near the services that people rely upon is going to be a key part of the path forward.
And the CMHC, they haven't really said too much on exactly when the money is going to start rolling out beyond. It would start by the end of the year. When do you hope to have these deals finalized?
As soon as possible. So you'll obviously be aware that we've reached an agreement with the City of London. I anticipate there will be many more to drop over the course of the fall. The one piece that I would caution people on is we're not going to sign any deal. We're going to make sure that we're agreeing with communities that have good plans that will build more homes. The goal is not to get money out the door. The goal is to build more homes in cities across this country, and that's what the Housing Accelerator Fund is going to do.
Thank you. As a former immigration minister, what would you say to the Canadian Indian community and Sikh community in Canada that are scared with what they learned yesterday?
Look, I obviously have a huge affinity for the South Asian and Indo-Canadian community in this country, given the importance of the diaspora community to Canada's social and economic well-being. This has been a tough couple of days. I've been engaged with some of my colleagues, not only who come from the community, but who represent large populations from India within their communities, and they're having a hard time. When you see the challenges associated with political divisions, religious divisions on other parts of the world playing out in our own country, it puts a lot of pressure on communities, and there's a lot of people experiencing pain that we want to demonstrate that we are standing alongside them. But obviously, the interference in the manner of extrajudicial killings on Canadian soil of a Canadian citizen is completely unacceptable. Regardless of your religion, regardless of which community you come from, I think we can find common ground that it's entirely unacceptable to be engaged in that kind of behavior. We will work to get to the bottom of this, but in the meantime, I hope Canadians, regardless of which community they come from, are able to stand alongside one another during this extremely challenging time.
Just about the Housing Accelerator, so there was an announcement in London. Was that the first and only city that got an agreement, or are there others?
It was the first. There will be more. There will be more this fall. I have spent much of my time since that announcement advancing the applications of other cities who are very close to approvals. Some will require a little bit more before they're ready to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund. Others are more or less ready to go. Sir, you look like you wanted to follow up there. Come to you next.
I just wanted to know, is there any mechanism that will make sure that the results are there? So you're giving the money money up front, depending on the condition that they change some zoning rules, etc. But what if 1 year or 2 years from now there is no increase in building? Is there a way to, get back the money or some sort?
So the money will flow over a period of a couple of years as more homes are built. We're going to insist that the cities report back to us on the progress that they've made. But the indications that we have is that and the assessments we're making as a result of our analysis on the applications is that we're only agreeing to release the funds to the extent that we believe the measures that are actually being changed are going to lead to that more home construction. Sorry, could you repeat that?
But what if they don't? I mean, is there a clawback process?
We'll be in control of the ability to release or not release the funding. If somebody does not perform the actions that form the basis of their application, we're not going to cut checks and say, oh, that's okay, you don't really have to do it, we only wanted the announcement. Of course, that is not going to be the path forward. So we're going to monitor the progress in terms of implementation and release funds when those milestones are met.
What you have to have in the agreement is to change zoning rules or etc. There's no target in terms of the amount of units that need to be built. So my question is, what if there are no more units being built, even if they did change the zoning rules?
So there are targets in terms of the number of units that would be built, and London in particular is a great example. They intend to add more than an additional 2,000 homes over and above what was already scheduled. So we will monitor that and make sure that we're transferring funding in accordance with it. I told JD I'd come next time.
Il y a quand même 800 villes en Ontario. Ça risque d'être très long de conclure une entente avec chacune des villes. C'est pas un processus qui est lourd.
Dans le fond pour accélérer la construction. OK.
Il y a 800 villes en Ontario, par exemple. Il y en a 1600 au Québec. Il y en a je ne sais combien en Alberta. Ça risque d'être assez long de conclure une entente avec chacune des villes pour accéder au fonds accélérateur de construction de maisons.
J'ai reçu proche de 540 applications par tout notre pays. Le cité de London est la première opportunité. Mais je pense que dans les quelques semaines, nous avons des opportunités pour approuver des prochaines applications et pour des mois dans l'avenir très court, c'est possible pour obtenir des autres ententes. I don't think this has to take a long time, but the key part to me is not administrative delays. It's the quality of applications we demand that will be producing more homes for Canadians. As long as we have good applications, we're talking weeks and months, not years.
How close are we to reach an agreement? Are you to reach an agreement with the Quebec government on this? Because municipalities, in fact, are waiting for this agreement. So how close are you to have this agreement?
Look, I never want to prejudge the outcome of conversations, but I have been having conversations with Minister Duranceau, and our teams are also connected, trying to work on finalizing things. The good news is I sense we share priorities. We both want to see cities change the way they build homes and build more homes, particularly affordable units, homes that people can actually afford. I don't want to presuppose that the government of Quebec is going to be ready today or tomorrow, but we're going to work with them more or less every day to get this done as quickly as possible. I think we are close, but we have a little bit of work to finalize.
More weeks than months.
Yeah, look, I would certainly hope so, but obviously we are one party to these conversations, and we want to make sure that we respect Quebec's jurisdiction, particularly with M30 preventing the ability for us to engage directly with municipalities. We want to reach an agreement with Quebec expeditiously. This is not the Housing Decelerator Fund, it's the Housing Accelerator Fund, and we're going to need to reach an agreement quickly.
Is the proposal is more successful than or is more effective than yours because you don't need to make these individual agreements with municipalities. You set a target, they either meet it, they get the funding, or they don't. So what do you make of his claim that he has a more effective approach to this than making these individual agreements?
Well, there's some self-interest motivating his perspective. He wants people to believe that his plan is more effective, but when you actually look at the people who know the field, people who have studied this their entire careers, they're saying things like it demonstrates he doesn't understand the scale or urgency of the housing crisis. With respect to Mr. Poilievre, his plan to divvy up $100 million nationwide is not going to have the same impact as a $4 billion fund, $74 million of which went to the City of London last week. This is peanuts in comparison to what we're proposing. The other piece that I don't know how they missed this, when you actually look at the model that he's chosen to move forward with, and saying that we're just going to base it on whether you increase the stock, he neglects to understand that some of the bottlenecks for communities require infrastructure investments from the federal government. How can you expect a city to increase their rate of building by 15% if you're also going to deny them the support for water and sewer infrastructure that they need to reach that goal. It looks like he's pulled a couple of ideas that felt good in a meeting with people who don't work in the housing sector, but realistically, our programs are informed by advice of people who know what they're talking about. The early indications in London and Calgary, and there will be more to come in the weeks ahead, are that we are actually changing the way that cities build homes. We're not talking about doing it in the future, it's happening now. I do have a cabinet meeting.
900 million for Quebec, is that a secure figure?
We want to make sure that we're working with Quebec. Remember that the housing... Indulge me for 30 seconds to explain. The Housing Accelerator Fund is based on a per unit cost, and the exact figure depends upon how many units that will be built, whether they are affordable, and certain other features, and it's all mapped out. So we are completely open to having Quebec have the appropriate share. We want to make sure that it results not just in a transfer without more homes being built, but that we actually reflect the amount.
The 900 million.
The exact formula will depend on the homes that will be built, but the good news is every indication I have from the province of Quebec is they want to build just as many homes as we do, and that's a great place to start in a negotiation.
You don't confirm
But
the
isn't
figure.
there a division for...
Sorry, guys, I have a cabinet meeting starting. I'll be here in a couple hours on my way out if you need me more. Thank you.
Mr. Virani, why don't we need parliamentary study of the bail
That bill is fundamentally important to Canadians. It's fundamentally important to parents and families right around the country.
But this is about pre-detention trial.
In terms of ensuring community safety, and what we're doing with that bill is we tabled that bill in May. We had consent of all premiers and attorneys general around the country. We had the consent yesterday to proceed on unanimous consent with all parties.
But how come you don't think it needs study? How come you don't think it needs study? We're talking about potentially putting more people in pre-trial detention, people who are legally innocent. Why doesn't that need more study?
Bail does not reverse the presumption of innocence. That's an important fact that you need to be clear about in terms of the people that are reading your articles. First point.
Yes, I know, but usually legislation gets studied, especially when it has to do with people's charter rights, and it was skipped yesterday out of, I think, political, this is politically expedient, it's politically popular, so why did you agree to do that?
I reject the premise of that entirely. The charter compliance of that bill was verified by me and by my predecessor in advance. This bill complies with the charter. This bill received input from premiers and attorneys general around the country. We got a lot of input on the front end.
Defense lawyers, stakeholders, prison advocates.
That is why everyone in that chamber yesterday decided to work on a nonpartisan basis to keep Canadians safe. That is my fundamental job. I will not apologize for doing my fundamental job.
But what about the chance of stakeholders, prison advocates, groups, defense lawyers, the legal community, Minister?